So we bring the curtain down on 2024 for the Springboks. They have named their team to take on Wales at the Principality Stadium this weekend. So that's what I'm talking about in the video. Welcome back. Drop a comment down below. What do you make of the team? There's some changes in there, as we've got used to seeing from the South Africans. Some interesting things as well, in particular the halfbacks. And I'll get on to Wales as well, because yikes, it could be a tough afternoon if you're a Welsh fan. So let me know. Also, like the video. That just helps the algorithm, essentially, and subscribe to the channel. I'd love it if you hit that subscribe button. The one thing to mention here, this is the team, by the way. One update, Nche drops out. He was originally named in the squad. That means Thomas du Toit moves to loose head, and we've got Wilco Louw coming in on the tight head side. As I mentioned, we're used to seeing changes from the Springboks. They do that pretty regularly. And just a word on that. I know it often gets mentioned about if South Africa have changed again and they rotate their team and they've got such strength in depth. And I often say that because it is so true. But I think the thing that I've been thinking about recently is it goes against perceived wisdom in so many ways, doesn't it? In that traditionally we hear that continuity is king, in terms of like your halfbacks and your centres and that, players that have played together, and also continuity in selection of just having a settled team. And of all the things that this Springbok team have achieved in terms of the double World Cup and how impressive they've been, and the visionary thinking that Rassie Erasmus has brought to the sport in terms of as a coach, I think the way he is dismantling some of these perceptions is really fascinating to me, that you can make so many changes and still be such an effective outfit. And maybe that's unique to the Boks because of their incredible strength in depth, but I just think it's worth mentioning. But as I say, Wilco Louw comes in and the bench replacements therefore stay the same. They haven't had to change anything on the bench. They wanted to keep their front row replacements that they named the other day the same. And actually, I think it's a change that makes a lot of sense. I mean, Nche, we know, World Cup final tomorrow, he starts for South Africa. But Wilco Louw has had to wait his time. I know he's got 15 caps, but he'll get to build on those. He, as I think I mentioned for the video, because he started against England, so the team news video for England. By the way, I thought he did pretty well against England, actually. But for that team news video, I remember speaking about the fact that if he played for virtually any other nation, I think he'd have way more caps. But he is a front rower for South Africa. It's such a position of strength. So I think it's good that he comes in. We see more of du Toit and we see more of Grobbelaar. And then you've got the likes of Malcolm Marx and Vincent Koch in particular amongst your front row replacements as the experience to come on. The other thing to mention, actually, if we're mentioning the bench, is Cameron Hanekom from the Bulls. He's set to make his debut, something I know a lot of the South African fans are going to know a lot about him, but he's incredibly highly rated. I'm excited to see how he goes. His only issue, isn't it, is that he plays in such a position of strength for the Springboks. Like, if you're a back rower, you have to be world class to get into this team. And I'm really excited to see how he goes. I guess that's the thing. When this is a team that rotates and they have such strength in depth, really making your mark and cementing that position is something that's actually quite hard to do. So he's one to keep an eye on. Let's get on to the halfbacks, though. I think that's arguably the headline from this team news. And what a moment for the Hendrickse family, by the way. So Jayden at 9, Jordan at 10. What a moment for the family. Let's just pause and appreciate that for a second. I cannot imagine what it must be like to have your two sons or your two nephews or whatever your relation is to them in that family, seeing them both start and line up for the Springboks would be an amazing occasion for them. But also a great opportunity for both of those guys. I know they're young, aren't they? I think, 24 and 22 or 23, 24, 23? Like, both young players. But I would say at the moment this year, Jayden has been third choice between Grant Williams and Cobus Reinach. And Jordan at the moment is third, maybe fourth choice if Sasha Feinberg Mngomezulu was fit. You've got Marnie and you've got Andre Pollard. So they're young guys. Maybe this is more of a sign for the future because Pollard is into his 30s and will depart. Cobus and Faf are both probably at some point going to move on. I suppose Faf has been injured, hasn't he? When he's back, maybe Jayden would be fourth choice as well. So I think this is massively an eye to the future and an opportunity for both of those guys. I don't think they've necessarily set the world alight when we've seen them previously for the Boks. In particular, Jayden at 9. But look, they're young, it's an opportunity, and they're coming up against the Wales team that, let's be frank, are in a terrible place at the moment. 11 defeats in a row for Warren Gatland's team. And I've seen quite a few people say they expect this game to be ugly. Look, I think South Africa will win easily. They met at Twickenham, didn't they, back in the summer, and that was a pretty one-sided victory. Wales haven't got any better since then. South Africa have gone on to win the Rugby Championship and look pretty good on this Northern Tour, Spring Tour so far for them. So I think it will be one-sided. I think we will see more from Wales than perhaps people are giving them credit for. Maybe that is me being hopeful, but I think typically when you're expecting an absolute drubbing, it tends to be more competitive than you expect. But having said that, I think South Africa will win, and I think they will win easily. I just hope it's not one of those games where it's like a 30-point lead at half-time and there's absolutely no contest, which it could well end up being that. I suppose elsewhere in the team, if we're looking at it and we're saying this is the final Springbok team of 2024, what are kind of the standouts when you look at that? Now, okay, the team would be different if they were playing stronger opposition, but what kind of, is there anything in particular that stands out for you? And the most obvious thing for me, probably, well, maybe two things. Number one is Afalele Fassi at fullback. Has that become his position this year? We knew there would be changes, and Willie Leroux is still there. Couple of caps away from 100. I think a few Springbok fans might be thinking, couldn't we have given him those couple of caps at the end of this year? I think he'll probably get them next year. But Fassi, it feels like to me, has established himself as the 15. The caveat to that is Damian Willemse, for a lot of the year, I think, has been injured and has missed matches. If Willemse was fit and firing, maybe he would still be the man there. And then I suppose number 8 is the other one, Jasper Wiese. Vermeulen retiring, Jasper Wiese is in there. Such an explosive ball carrier. I think he's done a good job there. And I think he's the sort of number 8 that you can have. England have often had it over the years, that with Sam Simmonds, for example, and actually even there's question marks now with Ben Earl, that when you have someone that is explosive and agile, but not necessarily the biggest guy in the world, don't get me wrong, I know all of those players pack a punch, but it does change the dynamic of your back row, whereas I think because, in particular, with when Peter Steff is playing in that back row, you know, Elric Lowe comes in for this weekend's game, you've got Khaleesi there. Because they've got such big bodies in the rest of the pack, it means Wiese at number 8 is still pretty effective. So, overall, what do you make of this South African team? And I suppose, what do you make of the way in which this team has developed this year? I think it is one of the most impressive things about this South African era, really. I remember speaking a lot about it last year with the way in which they rotated the team and built a squad that was capable of winning a World Cup. This year, they're rotating a team and building strength in depth, whilst pretty much still winning all the time. What did they have? They had defeat to Ireland when Ireland toured there in our Northern Hemisphere summer. And they had a defeat to Argentina, was it, in the Rugby Championship, which again was a game where they rotated. You know, these things happen, but they still won the Rugby Championship. And I would imagine they're going to go through this spring tour, this autumn tour, this northern tour, winning all of the games. So what a year I think it has been for South Africa. Let me know what you make of this team. What does it tell you? What are the standout things? What do you make of the halfback pairings and the rankings of where those guys are? Don't forget, like the video and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.